Like I've coached two guys under 10 seconds, and neither one of them lifted. One was allergic to the weight room, and the other one was scared to death of the weight room, but they ran fast.
So if the weight room, but we've kind of matured into this idea that somehow the weight room is the vehicle for everybody.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's a mistake. I think the weight room has value, but my question with young coaches or athletes on a return to play project or whatever is the why. Well, why do you want to do this lift? Why do you want to do this lift with these sets and reps and this density pattern through the week? What's your evidence or what's your intuition saying that this is going to do for you? And, whys have a lot of layers. And I tell guys, if you can't give me a couple layers of why we're going to use this item, this exercise, this apparatus, then we probably need to have further dialogue.
Makes sense. Obviously you've crafted a philosophy over these years. Can you give us a little bit idea of that philosophy and more importantly, like your approach? Is it based upon the individual and analysis or?
Well, I think there's, when I was a young coach, what I did is I started collecting training systems. So, at the time I was a big jumps coach. So who was jumping really well then? And that was the East Germans, the Russians, the Cubans, some guys on the West Coast, and a few Caribbean guys. So I just collected all of how do they train in the off season, early season, and during the season. And this before computers or spreadsheets or anything. And I just taped them all up on the walls. And this before markers even, so I had colored pencils. And I said, what are the common denominators? So all jumpers do acceleration work. All jumpers do some kind of speed training. All jumpers do plyometric training. All jumpers do something in the weight room. So I knew those were essentials. It was safe to prescribe those things and explore and research those things because they were common denominators. And so I've always kept that approach in any sport that I get into, whether it's hurling in Ireland or cricket bowling in the UK or, a skier going downhill. What are the essential things that they have to do, and what are the essential things people are currently training? That's a good starting spot. And you want to get esoteric off there, fine. But it's an educated esoteric drift. It's, you got to keep the essentials the essentials. Every sport's a chess game to me, and there's levels of chess. So, each puzzle's interesting. I shouldn't say, they're boring or it wasn't exciting. there are periods, you set a world record or win a gold medal. It's exciting, obviously, but the process, it's a lot, if I'm coaching a decathlete that's got to master 10 events and be good on the day once a year, that's a little different puzzle than a sprinter that gets 20 races a year and, gets several rounds in the Olympics before they have to hit their crescendo. So it's, it's kind of apples and oranges comparison. I like to coach athletes that are curious, that are in the process, that are process people. I struggle with outcome people or robots. I generally encourage those people to find another provider because I'm not very good at coaching robotic people or, those types.
So you appreciate the athletes that ask you why?
Yeah.
Okay. Because I've played for a lot of coaches that got real frustrated when I asked why we do this.
Well, a lot of coaches like to be robot controllers. I think that limits your toolbox, so to speak, if you got a robot and you got a director.
What kind of questions do you ask to find out if an athlete is a why person or a robot very quickly?
Well, I always do kind of an induction interview, and I'm like, what are you curious about? What are you passionate about? How do you approach this problem? I'm giving some case study type things. I said, okay, if you have a hamstring injury, what's your thought process? Do you blame the coach? Do you blame the weather? Do you look at yourself? If you look at yourself, what do you look at? What was the instigator of the problem? When you had a good race, what do you think went well in that process? And when you had a bad race, what do you think went poorly in the process? So you kind of ask questions and you listen really well so that you can ask better questions and add on. But, generally I can sit with someone in 15, 30 minutes and figure out, if they're curious and open-minded and, in love with process thinking.